Hey there, Margo here. Last year, I swapped Ms. for Mrs. and traded courtroom battles for family dinners. Talk about a curveball. Well, I can defend myself against any judge deciphering family dynamics. Now that's a whole other legal territory. Buckle up, because I'm about to paint a picture. My fiancé, Tom, is a total mama's boy. Bless his heart. Mrs. Walters, his mama, runs the show. Major respect for raising 2 kids solo, queen bee status earned. But then there's Sarah, his sister. A whole different story. Picture the universe revolving around her and you've got it. So, there I am, waltzing into their living room with Tom's arm proudly wrapped around me. Think cozy home movie set, except every surface plastered with Tom and Sarah's faces. It's cute, but feels like I've crashed their lifelong performance. Cue the unexpected guest star, Mrs. Walters, with a smile tighter than a drumhead. You know the type, the one that screams forced politeness while I secretly judge your dental hygiene. Floral dress screaming matriarch, she sizes me up like a used car with questionable mileage. Margo dear, she starts, voice laced with skepticism. Tom's told us so much. And I've been dying to meet the legendary Mrs. Walters. I reply, trying to break the ice. Sarah chimes in, Hawkeye's locked on me since my arrival. So, Margo, lawyer life. Picture you like those TV shows, raking in the dough. Spill the beans. What's your real salary? Nearly choked on my drink. Who asks that point blank? Laughter's my defense mechanism, so I chuckle and say, trade secrets, got to respect the code. Mrs. Walters, ever the opportunist, jumps in like it's a relay race. Tom throws me a pleading look, silently begging for damage control. This family dinner? Looks like I'm in for a wild ride. Stay tuned for the legal strategies I whip out to survive, and maybe even win them over. Instead of a meltdown, I channeled my inner lawyer. Dollar to donuts, I've heard that question more times than I've argued cases. So I deflect with a smile that hopefully masked my annoyance. Mrs. Walters, bless her heart, snorted like a startled horse. Yeah, you heard that right, I retorted, channeling my sass. Unlike Mrs. Walters, everyone knows exactly how much teachers make, right, Tom? Tom winced, muttering, Mom, not now. She waved him off like a pesky fly. Right. Family now, remember? Sharing is caring and all that jazz. I shot Tom a look worthy of a silent SOS. I wasn't just marrying him. I was signing up for domestic espionage, Cold War style. Fast forward a couple of weeks. There I am, apron on, kitchen warrior facing down Mrs. Walters' famous chili. Now, she and Sarah have this drop-in anytime routine, acting like our place is their personal extension of the living room. Needs more heat, Mrs. Walters declared, prodding the ladle like she was fishing for secrets. And less salt, gotta watch your hubby's blood pressure, sweetie. My internal eye roll could have powered a windmill. Sarah, perched on a stool like royalty, chimed in, see that smudge, Margo? Cleanliness is next too. Well, you know the rest, Mom. Mrs. Walters nodded like it was scripture, while Sarah gave herself a mental high five. Funny, I said, wiping the non-existent smudge I just cleaned. Must have missed it under Sarah's inspection microscope. Tom, oblivious in the next room, remained glued to his video game. Priorities, right? Enough was enough. Time to debrief my fiancé on the home front invasions. I found him glued to the couch, probably strategizing some virtual conquest. Hey, babe, got a sec? Tom glanced up, briefly, like he feared missing a pixelated touchdown. Ah, sure. Your mom and Sarah, they drop in, boss me around, and basically critique my every move. It's like they're on a mission to find flaws. I unloaded the details. Tom sighed. Margo, they just pair, I guess. They ease up. Back in the kitchen, I felt like a contestant in a cooking show for Nell, facing a jury of disapproving grandmas. So dinner ready yet? Tom must be famished, Sarah drawled, looking down at me like I was serving hors d'oeuvres. "Whenever this chili decides it's worthy of your judgment," I retorted, a hint of steel in my voice. I kept things light, playing their game. Dinner's served, and I scanned their faces like a judge reading reactions. Mrs. Walters dissects every bean as if searching for the holy grail of chili recipes. "Different from mine," she finally announces. Translation: "Nice try, rookie, but the crown stays with Mama." Bless Tom's heart, he digs in anyway, praising it to the high heavens. Sarah mutters something that could be agreement, but Mrs. Walters acts like she just ingested poison. Once they leave, Tom pats his stomach and assures me it was great. But as the door closes, I feel like a pawn in a chess game I never agreed to play. Did I imagine Tom's words working magic? Still, I ask him to talk to his mom about boundaries. Compared to this, getting married seemed like a walk in the park. Integrating into his family. Now that's a 5-alarm fire drill. They have their own definition of family, and I'm not even close to fitting in. This is happily ever after. More like honeymoon, hold your horses. The day dragged on, slower than molasses. Then my phone chirped. Caller ID, Mrs. Walters. My headache throbbed in sync with the ringing. Margo. Her voice dripped with ice, not exactly soothing my throbbing head. "Think you can steal Tom away from us, huh?" Her words felt like salt on a wound. I glanced at Tom, hoping for a flicker of protest, but he remained glued to the TV, a human statue with a weak pulse. "Mrs. Walters, it's not like that. Just some healthy boundaries," I managed, voice tight. "Boundaries," she scoffed. "Fancy word for shutting us out. You can't do this to me. He's my son." Frustration burned in my eyes, but Tom remained silent, spine looking suspiciously shrunk. Then he finally spoke, but not in my defense. "Mom, is everything okay?" "Margo's not. Unreasonable, I guess." His voice was as limp as wet cardboard. "Tom. Oh, Tom." Mrs. Walters' voice dripped with hurt, and Tom immediately took the bait. "Sarah said that?" He whipped his head towards me, eyebrows accusing. "Yeah, she did, honey. Family is family, Tom. You can't just turn your back on us." She pressed harder, knowing she had him under her thumb. I watched my beloved husband deflate like a punctured balloon. 2 days later, the promised family meeting, Surrender Summit, came and went, leaving everything seemingly unchanged. Tom retreated to the couch, resuming his channel surfing championship. Mrs. Walters' surprise visits continued, each a masterclass in passive-aggressive jabs. And Sarah, well, she might as well have been a puppet master, pulling Tom's strings whenever the mood struck. When whispers of Sarah's gossip-fueled town tour reached my ears, my blood boiled for a second. But I wouldn't let anger dictate my next move. This needed finesse. So I waited for the perfect opportunity to confront Sarah directly. Saturday morning found me stalking her at the market, her basket overflowing with groceries. She didn't see me coming, but I approached with steady confidence. "Sarah," I greeted, her eyes rolling skyward. "What do you want, Margo?" "We need to talk. About the stories you've been spreading." She scoffed, a smirk blooming on her face. "Stories? I'm clueless." "The rumors, Sarah. The nasty bits about me. Cut it out," she snorted, tossing an apple playfully. "And what if I don't? Think you can boss me around?" I held my ground. "Listen, spreading lies isn't just mean, it's slander, and I won't tolerate it." She laughed, louder this time. "Sue me? Get real, Margo. You haven't got the guts. People's reputations are at stake." "I'm serious, Sarah. Keep it up, and I will take legal action." Her arrogance was palpable as she leaned in close. "You're in over your head, city slicker. You think you can take me to court?" "This isn't a game, Sarah. Stop this before things get ugly." Her face, inches from mine, held a fierce challenge. "Bring it on, Margo. Do your worst." With that, she sashayed away, leaving me standing amidst a display of toppled canned beans, her mocking laughter echoing down the aisle. The walk home was slow, filled with replaying the encounter. When Tom returned, boots half off, I recounted the whole thing. He froze, one boot dangling by its laces. "You did what? You threatened her with a lawsuit." His face flushed crimson, then drained white. "Couldn't you just ignore it? Why stir the pot, Margo?" I squared my shoulders. Bullying wasn't on the menu, not from Sarah or anyone else. We stood there, a heavy silence weighing us down. This wasn't just a family squabble. It was a line in the sand, and I wouldn't be pushed past it. Tom, however, stood frozen, his ever-present lost puppy expression etched deeper than ever. I collapsed onto the couch, fuming. The gossip might simmer down for now, but Sarah was like a persistent weed, bound to sprout again. And Tom, well, the jury was still out on whether he'd ever stand up to them. One thing was clear. I needed to cool down and strategize my next move in this dysfunctional game they were playing. The whole Sarah drama had me weighing options like a pro-con list on repeat. I signed up for life with Tom, not a daily soap opera starring his family. As things went from bad to worse, a word started rattling in my brain like a loose screw: divorce. Then, like a well-rehearsed cue, Mrs. Walters, the town gossip queen, and Sarah's godmother, called. "Margo, dear," she chirped, sweetness dripping from her voice like cheap syrup. "We're throwing a little soiree for Sarah's engagement next week at Luigi's. We'd love to see you there." The fake nicety practically screamed, "Show up at your own peril." I stared at the dead phone, the invitation smelling like a setup. Tom was already on edge, and now this. Guess who's got exciting plans for us next week? I blurted out, finding him at the kitchen table, forehead creased like he was trying to iron it out with thought. "Who's scheming now?" I asked, blunt as ever. "Your sister's engagement party. We're invited, courtesy of Mrs. Walters." His face drained of color, the crease deepening. "Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right." "So, what's the plan, Tom? Roll over and play nice?" The silence stretched, unbearable. "Come on, spit it out." Finally, he looked up, his eyes serious. "Margo, it's family. I think we should go." I crossed my arms, heat rising in my neck. "And let Sarah have her day in the sun at my expense. I'm not a punching bag." He threw his hands up, slightly overdramatic. "What do you want me to say? She's my sister, Margo. And I'm your wife." I countered, leaning in, hands flat on the table. Or does that not count for much these days? The dreaded D word danced on my tongue, but I swallowed it hard. He ran a hand through his hair, making it stand on end like he'd been struck by lightning. "Of course it counts. Look, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. One wrong move and I lose it." "Guess what, sweetheart?" My voice hardened. "So am I. I married you, not your need to please your family at my expense." He walked over, taking my hands in his. They felt rough, calloused from work and worry. "I love you," he confessed, a touch of despair lacing his voice. "This situation sucks, but let's not go. We're a teen, remember?" It struck me then. This was the first time in ages he'd chosen me without hesitation. A tiny oasis in the scorching desert. The D word, quietly tucked away, retreated further, not gone, but slumbering with one wary eye open. Maybe, just maybe, we could find solid ground again. Luigi's buzzed with excessive laughter and clinking glasses. Mrs. Walters, queen bee extraordinaire, held court at the biggest table, radiating "I run this show" vibes. Sarah, her soon-to-be fiancé Mark looking like a bewildered deer in headlights, practically glowed like a lottery winner.